Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Graphic Design is Fun podcast. My name is Dan. Today we are chatting with Hayden Burgess, founder of Pitcher, where he helps graphic designers and other creatives, thrive in business. Now, look, I know business is kind of scary, and there's a lot of dudes on Instagram giving out business advice, and it can be a bit much. But here's the thing. Hayden is a good guy. He's a friend of Todd Beebe's. If you listen to the very first episode of this podcast, Todd is a bit of a legend around here. And so Hayden worked with Todd a couple years ago to help him with his, the business side of his freelancing. And, a friend of Todd's is a friend of mine. I was introduced to Hayden. We've been chatting over Instagram. We sat down, we talked about, sales, business, getting clients as a freelancer, how to charge the amount of money that you think you should be charging as a freelancer, and all kinds of scary stuff like that. And look, I wanted to try an episode like this. I think in general, I want to kind of cover all the areas of graphic design because at the end of the day, business is part of the profession. So I figured, why don't we talk business on the podcast? I really hope you enjoy today's episode with Hayden Burgess. Actually, I was looking through your website and I saw Todd's video. He's got a sort of testimonial. It was interesting to see. I was like, wait, I recognize this guy. Oh wait, that's Todd.
He was so much fun to work with, and because he's super clever, already doing good work, like into kind of the same stuff as me. So it was like, dude, if I could find you and find 100 other Todds, it'll be perfect,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's get into it a little bit, Hayden. Why don't we or why don't you give me a little background on who you are and how you got started doing what you're doing now?
Cool, man. So my name's Hayden. I'm a predominantly like a business coach. That's what I do now. So how I got started in this was about 10 years ago. I started working with my dad. Like, he's been a business coach for years and years now, and he had a business where he teaches other business owners like how to grow and how to sell and all that stuff. And I was never interested in that. Like, my vibe was always doing my illustration, my design, and like I was, I guess I kind of saw myself as a creative person first, and that was my thing. So this business thing was like all of a sudden. So this is a long. I'll try and keep it short, Dan.
No worry, you can go long.
Cool. So I guess when I joined that business, it was like you have to wear a suit. It's very formal, and that's how you should do business. So I had this really jaded idea of business, but I kind of overcame that over time. And then so I did that for close to 10 years, and then about 2 years ago, I decided like I want to work with people who I can connect with and help in a different way. People like me. So I started Pitcher because I thought, well, there's a lot of people out there who are amazing at what they do, like mainly kind of graphic designers. I love kind of working with designers because I can really kind of relate to what they're creating, who just are amazing at what they do, but they don't have some of those hard sales skills and marketing and business skills that you need, to grow. So that's kind of how I kind of came into this, from being a creative myself, being kind of pushed into the business world, and then having to make my way around that, and I guess kind of form something that works for me,
Yeah. I mean, I relate to the sort of you have to wear a suit and you're a little worried, like, is it, this isn't for me. I feel like a lot of creative people feel that way, and kind of relates to sort of what we can talk about, that creative people, if you're doing it professionally, and whether you like it or not, probably need to look at the business side of things, and that's like scary for a lot of people, or it's just like a turnoff. They have no interest in that, and I can definitely fall into that bucket sometimes.
It is scary, but I think one of the big mindset shifts that I had was one of my favorite speakers, Russell Brunson. Like he was a guy I really kind of got into when I first got into business because he had a good message. He was putting positive, helpful stuff into the world through what he taught. And he had this idea that, business is an art form in and of itself. And he was like, this is how I create my artwork, by working out how I can create programs that help people better, software that help people grow and all this stuff. So that was a big turning point for me. But you're right, man. Like people find it very intimidating, especially anything that is a little bit salesy or like kind of seems like kind of marketing. It's like if I have to sell myself, that's really like a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I remember just going through your site and listening to Todd's testimonial. Todd, of course, from the very first episode of this podcast. Shout out to Todd; he's a great guy. And he was saying, once I kind of got into some of the things you'd been saying, it actually connected a bit with, I have certain systems for how I design a brand identity, and now I can have certain systems for how I do sort of my marketing, so to speak. And so in that same way of sort of like business can be almost looked at as an art. But yes, so why don't we get into what are the things that you will help sort of graphic designers or other creatives with, whether it's getting more clients, charging more money, like what's sort of your focus there?
Yeah, totally. So it's all of that really, but I think like it's from working with a lot of designers and creators. I think the biggest challenge that we all need to overcome is valuing our work and really understanding how much of a tangible outcome that it creates for the client. And this is really kind of topical because I saw a post on Facebook the other day, and it just drove home once again how some business owners and some people see what we do. And it was a promotion. I'm sure you've seen these before, bro. And it was like send in your best idea for this label, for our bottle, and we're going to choose 4 people who will get $1,000 each, and they'll get some free product. But we want all the best ideas sent in for free, And I think that's really topical and relevant to what you said, because people still devalue the work that we do, and they don't. And I think a lot of the market still don't understand, especially smaller business owners, maybe kind of large business owners too. Don't understand the value of brand strategy, of brand, like how that actually positively affects or negatively affects their business. So I think one of the big things that we start with when I kind of work with clients, and also what I try and kind of put out with anything I create, is like having the right mindset and understanding that you aren't there to kind of service your client. You're there to create a solution that helps them. You're there as an authority to give them advice and consult with them. And I think that's one of the another long answer, sorry, Dan, but I think one of the mistakes is like we see ourselves as service providers. And if we see ourselves like that, that's how the clients are going to treat us. And, changing that takes time and it takes experience, of course. But I guess in a nutshell, I teach processes and systems around finding clients, around pricing, how to pitch ideas, and how to sell your solution, which is, I see it as having a really strong creative process, and alongside that you have your business process, right? But really, what I teach gives people, which is probably kind of more important, is just more confidence in what they do, and more kind of confidence with clients. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, and it can be a tricky thing. I mean, like you said, in terms of like knowing your own value, but also then how do you communicate that value? I find that that's one thing I get stuck on, where you have a client who's pushing back and saying like, "Wow, your rates are high," or are we really going to be getting our money's worth? And just like, it's like, well, I know you'll be getting your money's worth, and like I know that I can do really great work for you, but you start to feel weird because it's like, well, now I'm trying to convince this person of something they don't believe, and it's like that can be tricky, I mean, so what do you suggest in sort of in terms of like how do you communicate your value or what you can bring to the table to a potential client?
Yeah, totally. And that's such a big question, man. Like most people, that's one of the biggest challenges. And that's one of the first questions they ask me. How do I talk about what I do? Because uh, for one, the client can't see it. It's not like a physical product where they're paying X amount for this, right? Um, and kind of secondly, a lot of the time it's hard to do because the business owner themselves doesn't quite understand what you're selling. They know they need a logo, but they don't really understand what brand means. A lot of them understand like marketing and sales, but brand is still a bit of a like a gray area, I think. So it's a big challenge. So the way that I see it is you really need to translate what you're doing into words that the client understands. And that's not about talking or convincing, because I don't think you should ever have to convince anyone to spend money with you. Um, but it's about really asking the right questions and I guess kind of telling a story through those questions. And essentially, and this is like a really really what's the word, like a high level kind of way to think of it though, um asking questions so you can build a bridge between your client's problem and your solution. Because like if the client doesn't maybe understand the importance of having a mission statement uh or cohesive kind of messaging or whatever, like a lot of clients won't understand that. The right ones will, but it's up to you to translate that into how's that going to positively affect your business in real terms. So that kind of answers your question, I hope. um, but really, I'm really big on, some people teach persuasion and some people teach convincing and some people teach here's what you need to say, here's how to handle like all these objections, here's how to push back when they push back on you. I'm a big believer in really taking the time to understand the client, kind of position yourself as an authority from the start, and asking the right questions to really kind of get down to the root of like, what are they hoping to achieve from this, and how can we connect each of the parts of our solution to that problem and that solution. If that Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I do this myself, and I think this is sort of advice you'll see in kind of the world of like branding and brand strategy, which is like if you're not asking questions, then very often a business owner who may know that they need a logo may not realize that they could benefit from a lot of other things. But by kind of asking these
Yeah.
questions, then they can realize for themselves, okay, yeah, I mean there are some maybe fairly big areas where like we actually don't know what we're doing or we don't have a plan.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly, man.
and then that's sort of where you come in, I guess, as
Yeah, yeah,
as a
exactly.
designer.
Exactly. And I think that like most of us ask questions anyway because we need to find out like what we need to create. We need to ask the kind of creative questions to get the uh idea of the direction of the project and the outcomes, etc. But I think what I've found is people don't ask enough good kind of business questions and kind of connect what they're creating back to a tangible solution. A lot of the time, I think we don't take the time to ask about money and how this project's going to positively affect the client financially, because the big idea with that is, like the more you charge for something, the more the client's going to want to understand how they can actually make a return on that. And I think one of the big challenges is people are afraid to talk about money and ask their clients like what's the average project, like how are they kind of selling their stuff, what's the average kind of customer spend per visit, what's the lifetime value of a customer. All that stuff is information you need to know, because sometimes the client won't understand exactly what you're delivering, but what they do understand is how that's going to positively affect their business and potentially how they can help them make more money, kind of reach a wider audience, attract a different type of customer.
Right. So sort of like, if we can create it, whether it's through the branding something that will attract, let's say, a 5% increase in your customers, and you know how much a given customer is worth, then you can kind of do a rough calculation and say, at the very least, you'll gain this much from it, like that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm not saying like that you should kind of pull numbers out of the air, but I think the challenge most people have with this, sorry, this is kind of getting a bit hyper focused, but is the client will say, how can you prove that? And they go, well, I can't, and they might say to them, well, you're only one part of a bigger machine, it's also our marketing, our sales team, all these other kind of bits and pieces, but if you've ever read stuff from Marty Neumeier, he talks about this all the time, like you can actually kind of measure the lifetime value of a customer. You can like measure a whole bunch of stuff, and you don't have to ever kind of necessarily say to a client, I'm gonna guarantee you this. But if you want to articulate the value, you can kind of bring those stats in and say, hey, this thing's actually going to help you financially, and it's not, and it's only kind of one kind of part of it, but just to like answer your question, like articulating your value is by kind of telling a story through connecting what you're going to create to the need that your client has, and then explaining that solution in terms that they understand, because they don't understand how we talk, the concepts that we talk about, but they do understand how that's going to affect them in a positive way.
Yeah.
Long answer, sorry, Dan.
Hey, no worries, no worries. All right, well, let's talk about, because I feel like there's kind of two sort of broad categories in terms of, like, being a freelancer and wanting to create sort of that sustained income. One of them is charging the amount of money that you think your services are worth is one challenge, but then the other challenge is getting those clients in the first place. How or what do you recommend in sort of general terms for just kind of creating more what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a consistency, maybe, like
Consistency, exactly. More consistent flow of clients and less unpredictable.
yeah, totally. I think, like, from my experience, and this is across all industries, but I think people don't do enough sales and marketing because they either go, I got busy and I did this massive project and it took me a whole month and I didn't do any content creation, any posting on social media, I didn't update anything, I didn't do any reach outs, like all that stuff gets pushed to the side when we get busy. So at like a high level kind of way to look at this is, if you think about Peter Drucker, he was a management guru, like, super famous, and he always said, like, the two purposes of a business are to, number one, innovate, so kind of create great products and create great solutions for the clients, and number two, find those clients and generate new work. But I think for a lot of us, we spend a lot of time on the delivery and not enough time consistently looking for new opportunities. And I talked to my friend the other day, who's a graphic designer over in the US, and I always quote him because he's pumping out great work, he's doing great content, and he said to me, people always ask why I'm always get new jobs, bigger jobs, consistent work, and it's because I'm doing always looking for new work, so at a base level, something we should be doing every single week is making time for business development, like, because if we're spending a whole week just working for clients, like on jobs, we aren't taking time to work on ourselves and work on our own business, and not going like, hey, I could spend 2 hours this week doing outreach. I could spend 2 hours this week asking for referrals from my network, actually kind of mapping out who my ideal clients are and attaching names to those ideal clients. I could spend time engaging with great clients on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So looking for new clients and kind of growing steadily, I think it's something that happens over time naturally. But too many people get stuck in that freelance mindset, or that early days business mindset, which is, I just rely on a word of mouth and passive and referrals. So they go, all my work comes from my old clients who refer me. I don't actually control that process. It just comes to me. Or someone sees my work and comes to me directly. But if you get stuck in that, that's when the work gets inconsistent, because you aren't actually doing consistent activities to find all that new work. So I guess it comes back to what we talked about at the start. You've got a creative process. You need a sales and a marketing process that you make your own, working kind of side by side, and that's what makes a great business.
Yeah, no, it's so common. I mean, I don't. Why do you think that is, though? That freelancers or maybe it's people in creative industries specifically. There's like an aversion or like a thinking that I don't need to advertise or to do any kind of reaching out in order to get clients. I mean, and some people get along just fine and through word of mouth,
They do. Yeah.
Um, but that's certainly not everyone. I like, yeah. Well, why do you think that is?
Uh, it's because we love doing the work, and that's why we got into doing what we do, because we're most at home. And I'm the same. Like, I love doing my job. I love helping people. I love coaching so much. But if you kind of said to me, you can have the whole day to paint and do some illustration and stuff, I'll be like, yeah, I'm into that. You know what I'm saying? So I think we love doing the work so much that the business side of it takes second, or plays kind of a second fiddle maybe. We aren't really taught as much about that side of things if we studied. So that's another thing, like you aren't taught how to kind of reach out and connect with people or find clients or do business development stuff. So that's another reason. But you're right. I think a lot of people do find just on a word of mouth and through kind of passive and referrals coming in. And they will kind of grow over time. But I think for most of us, it's inconsistent. It's a busy month, then a quiet month, or like a month where the work comes in, and then in the next month you do all this delivery, and then the work comes in again. So it's kind of sporadic. And I think, people who want to get past that point and they go, well, I'm doing $5,000 a month and I want to get to 10 or 20 or whatever. That's when you have to put in the groundwork and go, word of mouth's not enough. It's not consistent. If I want to hire someone, or I want to, do something like that, that's when I need to have more control over when the work comes in. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think it is?
Oh no, I don't know. I mean, I think you're definitely onto something with that, right? I mean, or as graphic designers, you do it often because you enjoy doing it, and then the more you introduce kind of a business side of it, maybe the less fun that sounds like as a job, but it's
Yeah.
probably going to be necessary. But I think another thing maybe is just, like I'll see someone on Instagram and I think, okay, like I want to be like this person, but you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. So I can emulate
Mm-hmm.
their work and I can emulate, what I see. But if they're doing things, that they're not sharing publicly, it's sending emails or whatever it is, whatever their sales process is, I'm probably not seeing it. So I can't really emulate that. I feel like
Yeah.
that's part of it, because I think, okay, well, if I just do what this person does, I'll be successful like them. But you
Yeah,
might not be
exactly,
seeing the whole
man.
story. Maybe that's part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, I think so too, because you're seeing their work, but you're not seeing what they're doing to generate that work. And there's a dude I follow on Instagram. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he was posting a really useful post on the other day about how he grew his freelance business. And he said he set himself targets. He was like, I set myself a target to reach out to X amount of people per week. And I
Oh
did
yeah.
that, consistently. And I love that. And that's a big part of what I kind of believe. You have to treat it like a business, like you're doing it because you love the work and you're passionate and you see amazing work from other graphic designers and you go, fuck, that's amazing. I'm going to create, something like that. I love their style. But you just, like you said, like, behind that, for them to grow and for them to get that, 100,000 followers or whatever, and those kind of large corporate clients, they did a lot of legwork to get there, So yeah, maybe you're right. Is it maybe that the people that we like aren't always showing their business, like the back end stuff, as much as like the end product,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
And
a
so
great
look,
point, man.
well, it's an idea. I don't know. But well, so let's talk a bit about that legwork, that sales process. In kind of general terms, what does that look like? A successful kind of sales process for maybe the solo creative freelancer.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think the sooner that you see yourself as a business owner or as a business, the better, because I think the freelance mindset is one thing, but the business owner mindset is another. And I think taking that leap is an important one we have to take if we want to make our freelance career or our design business a thing that we're doing until we retire. So a good sales process is going, well, I know who my ideal client is. Number one, you have to know that, because if you don't know who you want to work with or who you're targeting or who you'd love to help, then you're just trying to help everybody, and that's really tricky. But a good sales process comes down to consistent activities and going, well, I know I've got an inbound process, so I've got a method for getting leads coming in. For some people that's social media. For some people that's other stuff, like perhaps they have a profile on like Dribble or something, like whatever it might be. So you have a process from inbound and you have a process from outbound. And if you've got those two things working and you're measuring them, then you feel kind of confident, because you go, well, maybe the bulk of my week is spent on creative work, but I'm going to take 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever it might be, on a Friday or on a Thursday, whatever that might be, to work on my business. And I know the key activities I can do to get the growth I want, to get more clients that I want to work with. So I guess that's the start of it.
And wait,
And then,
so inbound, like you're saying inbound is kind of like, okay, so this is what I'm doing to get leads. And
yeah,
what's
yeah.
outbound?
So that's when you're actually kind of going out into the market and are reaching out to clients directly, or getting specific targeted and referrals.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So inbound is
Yeah, yeah,
more sort of setting up something like an Instagram or a Dribble account,
yeah,
and having
100%.
that as sort of a source of almost like passive leads, and then
Yeah,
outbound is more like directly reaching out.
yeah, exactly. And
Gotcha.
I think we don't do enough of that, because we don't know how to reach out to clients the right way, or we're unsure of how they'll respond. You have to do it the right way, of course, like, because no one likes a cold email. It's not or a cold DM, right? But yeah, and then so the inbound side as well, I'm doing some content, I'm doing some marketing, I'm posting stuff consistently. I might be engaging with my potential clients on a platform. I just think the challenge is, when I say to most people, what are you doing to get new work? They say, I'm just updating my website. It's almost done. I've got some new pieces going up in my portfolio. That's where it starts and that's where it ends. But so a sales process is like essentially the customer journey. So from someone who doesn't know you, to kind of hearing about you for the first time, to finding a project for you, to you converting them into a client, to you delivering, and then eventually kind of creating a customer for the long term. So that encompasses finding the client, identifying the client, and then actually how you sell your solution, how you follow up, how you do your proposals. Does that make sense? So it's quite a long thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, if we can circle back to, I mean, you mentioned, no one likes a cold email. How do you recommend going about, doing that kind of outreach?
Yeah, well, I guess I think the thing with sales is there's only a finite amount of ways to do things. There's little kind of nuanced things you can do in between, but to get a client, you can get them to come to you. You can cold email them. you can ask for a referral to them. So one of the things that I teach clients is if you can identify your clients, then you can either reach out to them cold. Of course, that's kind of one way to do it. I'm not a huge fan of that. Or you can actually get targeted referrals from people in your network. And I think people don't utilize that way of selling enough, kind of building relationships with people in your network who are referring you already, but actually saying to yourself, I'm not going to wait for that referral to come in when that person has a job. I'm going to ask for it now, because the big idea really with that, and this is kind of on a tangent, I'm sorry, but there's an idea that, if you think of your total addressable market, right? And that might be like 100 people, just to keep it simple. There was a study that was done by Harvard, and it said only 8.9% of your entire addressable market is actively out there kind of looking for you right now, right? So they're going, I'm starting up a new business, I want to do a rebrand, or whatever it might be, So they're going, I'm looking for Dan, I'm looking for someone else, right? But 91.1-ish percent of your market may not be actually kind of looking for you, but they have a need, So they're going, I'm thinking about doing this thing soon. I'm thinking about doing that. I'm thinking about you making this happen. So if you can get introduced to them, or if you can get in front of them before that, they're not looking at anybody else. There's a high degree of trust, and they're much more open to having opportunity for you. So I think that skill is underutilized. Actually, we get referrals are coming in anyway, but it's actually how can we make that part of our process, but reaching out cold, I think there's a right and a wrong way to do that. I think there's kind of different levels of warmth, like a cold email would be, I've never heard you before, I'm going to email you, Dan, and say, hey, Hayden, hey, Dan, do you want to work with me? But I think a warm email is better, where they might have seen your stuff on Instagram, or you have like a mutual friend, and it's like, hey, how can you position yourself and ask them to make a small commitment that's not too much, you know what I mean? It's not like, hey, here's my portfolio, if you have a job, let me know. It's, there's kind of ways to do it that are a bit more like, what can you offer them? How can you help that potential client? It's not a lot for them to do,
Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying. Like, you're saying start with something small.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
And like, because business owners are busy, and I know that some people who I talk to have great success from doing cold emails, but it takes a lot of time, so you have to be kind of focused with it if you're going to do it, and you have to think about, like, what's the easiest thing that I can ask this person to do to start the ball rolling,
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned, I feel like I've seen on your Instagram that you're a big reader.
Mm-hmm.
And any book recommendations for sort of the business side of graphic design, or any creative pursuit?
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, kind of first off, the obvious one is anything by Seth Godin. Like, his stuff is amazing. And The Practice, I've found that book super useful. Have you read The Practice?
No, I've heard of
It's
it.
it's essentially, he did a whole series of our workshops with creative people and creative business owners, and he distilled all the ideas into this book, which is like I don't know how many. There's like 100 little short, maybe even more paragraphs on how to see creative work, how to see business, and I've found that super useful book for just because I think with business, it starts with the mindset. It starts with understanding how that works for you. So I think anything by Seth Godin is a great place to start. Anything around mindset and how to treat people. Like, one of the best ever business books I read is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That book's like almost 100 years old, but the principles in that have helped me grow my business, and I think are so valuable from any creative person in business. Stuff like always do what you say you'll do, always be more interested than I'm interesting. You know what I mean? Like that stuff, those are the more high level kind of principles you have to learn. And something I always do, and I think it's important for people to do, but we don't do enough, is like those little small skills in business. Like I met with a friend yesterday for the first time, or it was just a catch up, for a coffee. And she emailed me after the call and said, "Hey Hayden, I'm really great to meet with you." So I think, those are the kind of ideas you can pick up from books. And really implement. And those are the big things that kind of make the biggest difference, like how you treat people, how you follow up, how quickly you follow up with a client. All that stuff. And I'd also say anything by Ryan Holiday is amazing. That's more, once again, kind of philosophy. Because I think the biggest challenge when you're kind of running a business, like it's finding clients, it's doing great work, but it's the mind games you have to kind of play with yourself. It's the anxiety, it's the stress you got to deal with. It's the, this clients are keeping me awake at night and they're asking me for last minute changes, even though it's all signed off, or this client's underpaying me, they're not paying the invoice. I need the cash to pay for this bill. So I think business skills are great. You can read books on sales and process and all that stuff. But I think the mindset stuff, going like, how do I deal with these situations day to day, is so important, man. And the Ryan Holiday stuff is really good for that.
Huh. Yeah, I actually just recently came across Ryan Holiday. That's like the Daily Stoic guy, right?
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's got some cool stuff. He's got good YouTube videos.
yeah. He does. He does. One kind of big idea that I really picked up from him was seeing obstacles as opportunities for growth. I think that's something we have
Right.
to see in business. If you kind of hit a wall and your client goes, "I'm not going to pay you," or you hit a wall and your client goes, I'm gonna have all the kind of creative input. I just want you to do this for me. Or if a client kind of mucks you around, or if the money's not coming in, you have to say to yourself, what's this obstacle gonna teach me? What's this challenge gonna help me do better next time? And that was one of the biggest ideas I picked up from his stuff, like seeing it as a challenge and as a place for growth.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That resonates with me so much actually. Even in like starting this podcast, I kind of, because I feel like lots of people are like this, where you have lots of ideas and then most of them you never go through with them, or some of them you might do and then sort of give up shortly after. And obviously I'm not far into this podcast, so we'll see how long she lasts. But you know like if people say no, or if an episode goes poorly, although actually they've all gone pretty well, but there've been lots of people who've been like, no, I'm just not interested in doing that. And then you can take that as a rejection, or you can take it as like, how what can I learn from this? What's a better way to reach out to somebody? Or you start to notice things. It's like, oh, like, and actually it kind of goes back to the cold email thing. I found that if I will sort of message someone completely out of the blue and say, hey, I'm doing this podcast, do you have any interest? Like, more often than not, it's a no, or someone not answering. But like if it's somebody I already have a mutual connection with, or someone who maybe I'll comment on their work, and then months later say, oh, I'll ask this person to be on my podcast. We already sort of have a connection, and
Yeah,
it just
exactly.
goes to sort of like, using failures as learning opportunities. I guess it sounds cheesy or whatever, but it's so true, so true.
I mean, like, that's the thing. Oh man, this is a really great one to unpack. A friend of mine posted him the other day about a book she was reading, and she said, I know a lot of people find personal development cheesy, but this book is amazing. And I think we have to get over the fact that it's cheesy, or it feels kind of silly. But these ideas and these tropes that you hear in the, like, around, like, kind of failure as opportunity for growth, etc., they're popular and spread widely because they're true. And
Yeah.
just like you said, like, if you reach out to someone and they're not open to even engaging with you or responding, or maybe they just say no, that's a reflection on them maybe as well, because they're not looking, or they're not open to opportunities, or they see themselves as too busy, or they are too busy, or maybe it's just not their thing, whatever, that's a reflection on them. But it can also be a timing thing. And so what I've always said to my clients is, if a client says no, maybe the timing's not right, or maybe it's not just timing, Ari, they don't have a job for you, but like maybe they don't kind of know you well enough yet. Maybe they need to hear a few more people talk about Hayden or Dan, and then they go, oh, now's the right time for me. So I think what I've always seen sales as, and I think this important idea is, sales is a relationship, and your first meeting with a client is the start of the relationship. It's not always going to be into marriage or whatever, or into like, or whatever, but if you see it like that, then you understand that not every person is going to be ready for you right now, and not every person is going to be right for you. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for the mindset and how you see your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice, dude. Well, that's sweet. I think we got a good episode here.
Cool. I'm glad.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of the Graphic Design is Fun podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps others find the show, so it would be very much appreciated. If you have any feedback, any suggestions, or just want to say hello, you can shoot me a message at Dan Allen Studio on Instagram or Twitter. If you love the podcast, if you hate the podcast, whatever you got, I would love to hear it. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.